They fail to attach to the uterus. Does that mean that women are abortionists because they have that thing also? Leads me to believe that God gives us a little bit of a choice.
I'm not quite following the logic there.
Abortion is natural, is what he's saying.
Abortion's natural. It happens.
Yeah.
Miscarriages happen.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
So does that make women murderers?
Of course not. Yes, ma'am.
First of all, I would just like to thank you so much for being here today. There's so many of us in this room who have absolutely been itching to tell you what we think of the work that you're doing. And we are so glad to have that opportunity today.
Great.
So that's why we are all here with so much enthusiasm. And there's so many things that I would like to talk to you about, but I think a big priority for me and for so many people in this room is a letter that you wrote to college universities last year that we were absolutely outraged about. And it had to do with our discrimination policy. And I would like to speak for so many people on our campus, on campuses all over Virginia, when I say that bigotry will not be tolerated at campuses all over Virginia. We want to see that sexual orientation, that gender identity, remain in our non-discrimination policy.
Well, I have news for you. Even if it's written there, it has no legal force and effect. And that has nothing to do with me. 28 bills. I don't write laws. I write advice letters. Lawyers advise, clients decide. And in Virginia, the governor and the General Assembly make the law. And 28 times, last time I checked the count, an attempt was made to change the law to conform with what you prefer the law to be.
What
And
most of the students on Virginia campuses
I hear
prefer.
you. I hear you. That's just fine. Don't forget to vote.
Morality.
Don't forget to vote. You're 0 for 28 in the General Assembly. And when that law changes, my opinion, my legal advice, now don't mistake the word opinion. The legal advice
We all know
in
your
that
opinion
letter.
on that issue as
Yeah,
well.
well, because I haven't voted on it. But the fact of the matter is I've issued legal opinions quite contrary to my own opinions as well. My legal opinions are our best guess of what a Virginia court would decide if the issue were before it. And in fact, on the issue you're referencing, a Virginia court has decided. It was a circuit court in Southside on Governor Kane's executive order where he attempted to try and impose, as the university has done, his own policy, and it was an employee was let go, for reasons that were never alleged. It wasn't reached because they targeted the one thing. They wanted to say that they were released because of sexual orientation bigotry. And the court said that is not a cause of action in Virginia. So if you want to continue, and I think this is unfair, I think that it is unreasonable of the university to suggest that that policy has any force of law whatsoever, because it does not. And that's just a statement of the law. There is a way to change that. And that attempt continues to be made, and I expect it will continue to be made going into the future. And that is to change the law. Only if you read the letter I wrote, you will find that it says that the General Assembly controls those policies. The university does not. They don't get to write their own laws. Only the Commonwealth's General Assembly can do that. I'm going to take one more here to get me to 1:45, and this lady had her hand up. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Cuccinelli, I'm sure you watched the Republican nomination debate, and the moderator asked Senator Ron Paul a question about what would happen if somebody exercising their freedom of choice decided not to buy health insurance, then was severely injured and went to a hospital. If they are not able to pay the cost, that has to be reabsorbed somewhere, and where their freedom to choose not to buy insurance ends, somebody else's freedom not to have that cost imposed on them because they made that choice not to buy insurance begins. What's your opinion on that?
Well, first of all, the federal government passed a law in 1983 we refer to as EMTALA, which requires any medical facility that gets federal dollars to take people at the door whether they're insured or not. However, the fact is, before that law, the overwhelming proportion of medical facilities were dealing with those people anyway. And the federal government really didn't change the reality on the ground by passing that law. But now they have come and argued, hey, these medical facilities are trapped. They got to absorb these costs, as you say, quite correctly. And so now we need to compel people to buy this health insurance. So they've created, on paper at least, the problem, and then they're using the creation of that problem to give them legal justification to solve it by compelling all of us to behave in one way or another.
But that doesn't really answer my question.
Well, let me keep going. I think I know where your interest is, so what do you do, ultimately? I think that, like so many other areas, where we have let the government, now, while breaking its budget, let the government set up as the safety net for everything. And I'm not just talking about healthcare, I mean everything. And we have now overextended ourselves budgetarily because of the transit, you move those costs from one place to another.
It's because of the wars. It's nothing to do with healthcare, and you know it. We have right now, because of the war.
I'm going to answer a question. I'm not going to engage in that kind of stuff. Ultimately, I think that we need to move in the direction of getting government more out of healthcare, turn people over money to deal with their own healthcare directly rather than run it through a government bureaucracy. And I do think that part of that is going to mean that everyone coming to that door, if they're not willing to pay the cost up front, won't be accepted. You're still going to see people who have life-threatening situations who need to be dealt with immediately, dealt with. But remember, if you talk to people in medicine, why they go into medicine, they go in to help people. And that's why before 1983, they were doing that anyway. And I'd also point out that the states can individually handle this situation however they would like to. And Massachusetts has done it by compelling the purchase of health insurance. And the result of that has been they have over 97% insurance rate in Massachusetts. They also have the most expensive health care in the country. Virginia, we have the most expensive health insurance of any of our border states, except North Carolina is more expensive than ours. And if you, as a Virginian, could buy health insurance in Kentucky, Tennessee, West Virginia, Maryland, or DC, you could buy it more cheaply than Virginia, but that's not even legal. Because Congress has used its Commerce Clause power to let the states balkanize this insurance industry. And now I'll tell you, I brought a bill to undo that in Virginia when I was in the Senate, and I ran headlong into insurance companies in the Commerce and Labor Committee.
I understand
And that sort of special interest interdiction gets in the way of real reform. But we're going to have to peel government out of a lot of this and move back to a market-based system that's going to have some difficulties for some folks.
You are correct that before 1983, many of the hospitals did, and especially religious hospitals, did let people in regardless of their ability to pay. But not all did, and especially if those laws were repealed. Are you suggesting that the hospital would have the right to let that person die if they were not able to pay?
No, I would expect that we would ratchet back EMTALA so that those are the people you're left dealing with, not the people who come in with a cold, who clog up ER emergency rooms and use those facilities for maintenance health care, which is exactly why people should be taking care of health care on an ongoing basis. And when something hits, if it isn't life-threatening to them, then they need to live with it. That's the consequences of their choice.
You say that people should be taking care of health care on a regular basis, but if they are going to the hospital to take care of health care, and I'm trying to get everything you said together, and we ratcheted back the laws in 1983 saying that the hospitals have to take care of them regardless of insurance, and you're saying that they don't have to be forced to buy insurance,
Right.
How exactly are they supposed to?
I'm not speaking in terms of legal compulsion to them to take care of their own health insurance. That's their decision. The average, one group of people that is going to get massively moved into health insurance that's not in it now is younger, healthy people in their 20s and 30s. They've made a financial decision to take the chance on something catastrophic happening versus the cost of health insurance. And we're taking away that choice. Now, in any form of system, there'll be some sort of filtering of who gets what. In a pure free market with no other intervention, that would be dollars. And one plus that we